Hello, my miraculous friend, and welcome to another episode of the Magnify Your Miracles podcast. This is Reverend Frances Baden, and I'm so grateful that we get to spend some time together today. We have a fabulous guest that I cannot wait for you to meet and get a chance to learn from. But before we do that, let's take a few deep breaths together, like I always do, just to get ourselves grounded and centered. And if you're driving, you please keep your eyes open, but you can always bring your awareness to your breath. And just allowing yourself to settle into this moment, to free up the mind, to be more receptive to the inspiration and the ideas that you're about to hear and experience. And knowing that whatever it is that you most need to hear today to inspire you to keep sharing your light with the world, that's going to be exactly what happens today. So let's take one more deep breath together in gratitude. We can begin. All right, my friend. Well, I am so grateful to get to introduce today's guest. We're going to be talking about an amazing topic. We're going to be talking about you and your brain. And, you know, we talk about miracles all the time on this podcast, but it's such a joy to get to learn about some of the science behind the miracles and to see that you are a walking, talking miracle. So I'm so excited, yay, to introduce you to Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. She's a Harvard-trained and published neuroscientist. In 1996, she experienced a severe hemorrhage in the left hemisphere of her brain, causing her to lose the ability to walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of her life. In her memoir, My Stroke of Insight, it documented her experience with stroke and an 8-year recovery. It spent 63 weeks on the New York Times nonfiction bestseller list and is still routinely the #1 book about stroke on Amazon. Dr. Jill is a dynamic teacher and public speaker who loves educating all age groups, academic levels, as well as corporations about the beauty of our human brain and its ability to recover from trauma. In 2008, she gave the first TED Talk ever that went viral on the internet, which I remember very well, which now has well over 26 million views. And in 2008, Dr. Jill was chosen as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world and was the premier guest on Oprah Winfrey's Soul Series webcast. So please help me welcome Dr. Jill. Yay! Hello, Dr. Jill.
Hi, it is so good to be with you, Frances. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful to have you here. And I know we're going to be talking about fascinating stuff. I can feel the energy already. But I always like to start by asking my guests, since, you know, it's not often that we get to talk to a walking, talking miracle, somebody that experienced the miraculous in such a profound way. But what's your definition of a miracle?
I think a miracle is a circumstance that happens that science cannot apply the scientific method in order to understand.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We just don't know how to measure it or repeat it or but it is what it is regardless. So and fortunately, I will say that because of various types of techniques now that scientists can use, we are actually, I think, getting closer and closer to understanding the unknowable.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been seeing it more and more where,
Yeah.
you know, in my field of spirituality, and I'm seeing so much emerging where they're starting to mirror each other a lot more.
Yes. Well, really, to me, it's the two hemispheres, and science is using the left hemisphere, the linear thinking, in order to define it, to create an experiment that is repeatable. It is methodical by nature, scientific method, and you just can't do that to things that are not existing in a methodical way. And even life itself cannot be clearly defined by how did life happen, because there's no method. It is a thing, it is an entity, it is a context, it is a bigger picture. So, I think we're figuring out, we have these two very magnificent halves of our brain, and one focuses on science to define phenomenon in the external world, and the other one is the experience of the present moment. So we're finding our way.
Yeah, I
we're
love that.
slowly evolving.
Yeah, so great. So, Not, I know I saw that TED Talk way back when and was fascinated by your story. But for people that might not know, can you just share a little bit about like what was your life like before you had the stroke and kind of where
Yeah.
you are now with things?
Certainly. When I was a little girl, I was the baby of the family, and one of my older brothers was very different from me in the way he perceived the external world and interacted and experienced and defined his experience, which was my experience. And I noticed immediately that we were on different pathways. We were very different from one another. And so I tuned into vocal, facial language, body language, intonation of voice. I just started looking at what am I as a human and what is he as a human, and how can we both be human and be so different in how we interpret. Eventually, he would be diagnosed with the brain disorder schizophrenia. So, because of my interest, I grew up to study the brain, and I was teaching. I was 37 years old, teaching and performing research at Harvard. And the focus of my research was how does our brain create our perception of reality? And what, at a biological cellular level, are the differences between people who would be diagnosed as normal and those who would be diagnosed eventually with schizophrenia, schizoaffective, bipolar, OCD, and panic anxiety,
Right.
because we're different. And then to me, it was a cellular issue. So, what are the differences? Which cells are communicating with which cells, with which chemicals, and then in what quantities of those chemicals, where in the brain, in order to define the output of the biological system. So that was my life, and then I woke up, and I experienced a major hemorrhage in the left half of my brain. And over the course of 4 hours, I watched my own brain completely deteriorate circuit by circuit
Yeah.
in ability. So, over the course of 4 hours, I could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. I describe myself as an infant in a woman's body.
Wow.
And I became so detached from my left hemisphere's ability to understand the external world. But it wasn't just what I lost. In the absence of that left hemisphere that's all about processing the external world, I mean, I didn't even know what a mother was, much less who my mother was. So all data from the external world was gone. But in the absence of that left hemisphere, it removed its inhibition off my right hemisphere, and they're both were dancing all the time together. But this way, I had pure right hemisphere experience. And I lost the group of cells that define the boundaries of where I begin and where I end, because I know that this face is my face, but these glasses are not my glasses,
Right.
because I have a group of cells in my left brain that define me, the boundaries of me. With that comes language, the ability to communicate with the external world. So I didn't know what a Jill was. I didn't know what was. I knew nothing. There was no definition of sound. I had no
Right.
language. And with that, I lost my ego. The individual, me, the individual, got lost when I lost that group of cells in my left hemisphere. So I shifted away from the focus of everything coming in through my sensory systems and being processed through me, the individual, the ego, the identity. And instead, I was as big as the universe. I was energy in relationship with energy. I was, I just was in this blissful euphoria, and I liked it there. Everybody else was freaking out, but I was happy there.
Wow, that's fascinating. Everything that you're describing sounds like so many of the goals of like the yogic path of like pulling our awareness away from our five senses and coming in and that whole blissful state. And you're actually saying that what they say, which is it's already there, if you can quiet down the other parts of
Right,
your brain enough that that part that's already there becomes stronger or a little bit more
right,
dominant. So,
exactly.
so
And
it,
that's
yeah.
that's Francis, that's actually what motivated me to recover, because I realized that if everybody realized that we have access to that blissful euphoria all the time. It's always there. It's like the blue cloud, the blue skies, that all is blue skies always there. Now there might be a storm or some clouds running through, which is kind of the noise of the left hemisphere. But at the core of who we are, we all have this anatomically as part of the structure of our own brain. And I thought, if I just pictured a world that was filled with peaceful, compassionate, loving, beautiful people. And that if we knew that we could quiet that left brain, step into that consciousness of that right brain, then what a completely different human species we would evolve to be. And we would have a different existence in relationship with this planet.
This is so important. It's like, I hope I don't cry, because I'm just so grateful for you doing this work to like make something that's spiritual and esoteric so concrete and physical for people that they because my thing I always say at the end of my podcast is that the key to magnifying your miracles is to know that your miracle is already here. And you just was like, yeah, it's these cells right here.
They're right there.
It's right there. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
So your beautiful new book, Whole Brain Living, tell people a little bit about what that concept is. I've been reading it. I've been listening to other podcasts you've been on. I'm loving this concept, but I want to help people understand, because we hear about, I'm a right brain person, I'm a left brain person, and you're like, yeah, you go much deeper than that. So tell us what this whole brain living concept is about for you.
So, yes, thank you. When I was a little girl, I was very right brained. And it was of the time when when the split brain stuff was going on, and it was fascinating. But I was very creative. I was very artistic. I was very musical. I was very athletic. I was in my body. I was very that. And my poor mother wondered if my left brain was ever going to turn on, because she was an academic. She was a doctorate of mathematics, you know.
Right.
And it's like, you know, is this child ever going to get a left brain? And so I go to college, and I fall in love with the subject of anatomy. And so at this point, my mom's a PhD, my dad's a PhD. Everybody's wondering, is Jill's left brain ever going to turn on? And so it does. And then it begins to run, and it falls madly in love with anatomy, neuroanatomy for research, cellular anatomy, tissue, beautiful, just phenomenal. So I took off on this left brain academic achievement, high achiever. So I do that. And then at the age of 37, I get shut down on my academic climbing the ladder issue. I fall off that ladder, and I get whacked right back into my right brain. Well, my right brain was pretty healthy before I started the rest of the journey. So I was probably very whole brained before, but you know, the universe said, you really want to know how the brain creates our perception of reality? We're going to take you on a ride like none other. And did. So here you got this brain scientist at Harvard, fascinated with how the brain creates our perception of reality since I'm a child. And it's like, boom. So I end up in the right hemisphere, and I'm thinking, wow, this is magnificent. But without a left brain, I am literally completely non-functional. I have no identity. I have no individuation. I don't know where I begin and where I end. I feel like I'm a fluid instead of a solid. I mean, what does somebody do with that? You know, you go in the flow, and you just kind of wander around. And there are people who don't have left brains. Some of them have had their brains split or removed, and they have to carry a book around with them, tethered to them, which tells them what their name is, where they live, and all the details of their life. Yeah, there are people like that. So I'm off in the right hemisphere, and then 2.5 weeks later, I go into surgery. They remove a blood clot the size of a golf ball, and they send me home and say, Jill, it's going to be 2 years before we know anything. And Francis, that was the greatest gifts they ever gave me. Was they didn't say 3 months, they didn't say 6 months, they didn't say a year. They say, go, your job now is to recover the skill sets of your left hemisphere. And it was like, okay, so it took the pressure off of me. And my mother, you know, bless her soul, what a total hero in my life. She came and she taught me. I was her infant again. She had to teach me how to go to the bathroom. She had to teach me how to eat. She had to teach me utensils. She had to teach me how to speak. She had to teach me how to read. She had to teach me
Wow.
mathematics, which took 4 years. And that was kind of funny because she was a mathematician. But anyway, she didn't think it was so funny. But I still think it's funny. But anyway, the irony of all ironies. So anyway, so I'm regaining these skill sets of my left hemisphere,
Yeah.
and I'm realizing that as I'm getting my left rational brain back, the left thinking tissue, and this is the definition of where I begin and where I end. So, okay, now I have a body. Now this is me. These glasses are not me. Okay, that comes back online. Language comes back online. Reading and writing of language, speaking language, eventually mathematics. And that character came back online and she said, okay, I'm back and I want to be the boss again
Oh,
inside of
yeah.
this head. And the rest of us over in the right hemisphere are going, what? I mean, it was a whole character. And I thought, well, honey, we love you and we are so grateful you're back. But no, we're a democracy inside of here and we're going to like have communication. And all of my pain from the past, my emotional system of my left hemisphere had been wiped out. It was like a slate that was just wiped clean. So, but it came back online to begin again. Like you have an eraser board and you
Sure.
have a lot of trauma and a lot of emotion from the past. It just got all erased. And then I got to start the new picture. So, so I have a new part emotion from my past. So I realized that there are 4 of me inside here. And the better we get to differentiate, it's kind of like a computer. A computer's, made out of titanium. You can use it as a hammer if you don't know what it is and what you're
Right.
supposed to do with it. And
Right.
that's kind of how we are with our brain now. We have these 4 very distinctive groups of cells, 2 emotional cells, one in each hemisphere, 2 thinking groups of cells, one in each hemisphere. And each of them exhibit, first, they have very different values and they exhibit very unique and clearly, easily defined and expected personalities. So this book is about whole brain living. Who are these 4 characters? And the power to choose moment by moment which of these 4 characters I want to be in any moment. And we all have it anatomically, and we all have that ability.
That's fascinating. So I love that you call them characters because I'm
Oh, they're
really
characters.
into this whole thing of like, rewriting your story. So tell us about, each character corresponds to
Yeah,
a different aspect of the brain or its cells, as you say.
absolutely. I'm looking for my brain. I washed my brain and I can't find it anywhere.
I'm
Isn't that the
looking for my
funniest?
brain.
I can't find my brain. I have this magnificent model of a brain and it got sticky because I was using it so much. Now I can't find it. I've lost my
You
brain.
lost your brain,
Okay.
rats.
So if we take a human brain and it's fit like this inside of our head and we open it up this way, we're
Right.
going to have left thinking tissue, left emotional tissue, right emotional tissue, right thinking tissue. And those are groups of cells. So the emotional tissue is the tissue that we share with other mammals. So if you picture my arms as the brain stem, that's essentially the sophistication of a reptile.
Right.
And then you add new tissue on top because that's the way biology does it. It likes adding new tissue, and that tissue is designed to refine the tissue below. So this is the reptilian brain for pretty much on off. I'm hungry, I eat, I'm not hungry. I want to reproduce, I reproduce, I'm done with that. Those kinds of things. I'm scared, I flee, I'm okay now. And then new tissue gets added on top. And in the mammalian brain, that's what makes a mammal a mammal. The difference between a mammal and a reptile is that tissue. And that's the limbic system, the emotional system. And it's evenly divided on both sides. So I have an amygdala and I have hippocampi. And the amygdala, I have 2.
It's fascinating. There's
I
2.
don't feel safe. I have 2 amygdala.
Wow.
And yes, and most people think we only have one, but
I
no, we
yeah.
have two, one in the present moment and one in the left hemisphere. And the left hemisphere, so the right hemisphere is right here, right now. Okay, so this is going to be the emotions of the present moment. Information is coming in right now, it's being processed right here, right now. The left hemisphere, that tissue takes the information coming in from the present moment, steps out of the consciousness of the present moment and compares it to everything in my past that ever happened. And it's looking for a reason to push it away and say, no, I'm not safe. I don't like that. It's not familiar. So it's going to be that tissue that says, you don't look like me. You don't sound like me. You're not the same color as me. You don't use the same language that I use. Whatever, you're different. You're unfamiliar. I don't like it. I don't want it. I'm afraid of it. Alarm, alarm, alert, alert. So that's that left emotional system. The right emotional system, right here, right now, having an experience of the present moment. From that emotion system, we add thinking tissue on both the left and the right. And that's what distinguishes us as humans away from other mammals. So when we look at this tissue, we have character 1, left thinking, character 2, left emotion, character 3, right emotion, character 4, right thinking. So we have these 4 different modules of cells. Character 1 is left thinking, and the left brain is a past and a future. It has taken information from the present moment and projected it into another time and space that doesn't exist. I
Wow.
know why I chose this shirt, because I can remember back an hour ago when I put it on, why I chose it. Well, the right hemisphere, it's all right here, right now. It has no clue and it doesn't care. What it cares about is, what does it feel like on my body? What does it
Right.
feel like? So it's experiential. My left hemisphere has the emotions of my past. So character 1, both character 1 and 2 then are in response to the external world. The right hemisphere is all about the present moment and what it feels like as a collective whole. The left hemisphere is about me, the individual, in relation to the external world. The right hemisphere is as big as the universe. We are just energy, and we are atoms and molecules in communion with one another constantly. And let's go be in the present moment with a joy and a gratitude. So character 1, left thinking tissue. This is our type A personality. This is the part that knows my name. It knows where I live. It knows all the details of where I exist. It defines what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. It is my ego. It is my individuality. And all the information from the external world is being processed through me, the individual. So, of course, I'm the center of the universe. I'm the center of the universe because I exist and I am the center of the universe. So, I call this character Helen, and I give each of my 4 characters an individual name because they have an identity. And the better I know each of these 4 characters, then when I hear the conversation on going inside of my head, I know who just said what based on what their values are. And I hear who responded based on what their values are. And all of a sudden, I start making sense to myself.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So by giving these parts of you a name, it helps you like, wait a minute, instead of just reacting to it, you're like, oh, that's Helen who's trying to
That was
control
Helen.
can try to control everything or whatever it is that Helen
Exactly.
does.
That's what Helen does. My character 1, Helen, hell on wheels. She gets it done. She's busy and she's fantastic at what she does, but she wants to be the boss.
Yeah.
But she got me here to be with you on time because she likes to control and create order out of the external world. So she controls people, places, and things, and she likes to be the boss, and she needs to be right. It's important to Helen to be right. And it's important to Helen that you put the stapler back where it belongs, whichever character's in there. or
Right.
whichever of your characters are in her space.
Oh, I recognize her.
What do you call her, Francis?
Oh, that's a good question. What would I call her?
What do you call her?
The part of you that like is really linear, wants to be in control, likes to have things in order.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just think, part of me is like, well, that's Francis. I'm pretty sure that that's just like,
Well, maybe it is Francis.
yeah, I'm actually hearing like logical Lucy is what I'm hearing. Like just
Oh,
really wanting things to be linear and logical. That's what I'm hearing.
yes. All right. Linear, logical Lucy. And I encourage your listeners, know this part of yourself. Give this part of your brain an identity and a name, and recognize when you're being that character. Where does it come out at? How is it in relationship with other people? Who gets along with your logical Lucy? Who doesn't like to hang out with your logical Lucy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So that's the first one. What about the other
Well,
ones?
that's character one, left thinking. Left emotion, character two. This is the part of us that is alarm, alarm, alert, alert. Give me a reason to push it away. It's not familiar. I don't like it. I don't want it. And it's gonna holler. It doesn't have language, so it's gonna holler. It's gonna cry. It's gonna whine. It's gonna blame. It's gonna scheme. It's gonna guilt. It's gonna feel guilt. It's all that. It's all that emotional trauma from our past.
Trauma.
And yeah, and it's also our addiction. It's our craving tissue. It's our addiction. So in order for me to have an addiction, it is something that I crave more of. And my ability to crave is actually, we got to remember, these are just cells. The brain is nothing other than a collection of cells in communication with one another. So every ability I have, my ability to care that my stapler goes back to where my stapler goes, that's a group of cells inside of my brain. And if I'm really a strong character one, all that means is that I exercise those circuits routinely. And the more you run a circuit, the stronger it gets, the more active it begins to run on automatic, and it becomes habitual patterning.
Got it. So
Some of
that's
us get
trauma.
caught some of us get caught in our trauma.
Yeah.
So my trauma, if I spend a lot of time thinking about my past, remembering my past, going into every detail of my trauma, thinking that if I go into every detail, then I'm going to find some solution. Yes, but if I do, I'm going to do that in reflection of. So this is a great place to visit, but it's not a great lifestyle.
Got
It's
it.
important to go and visit and explore and learn from, but it is not a good lifestyle, because this part of ourselves is caught up in the past or the fear of the future. And yeah, I mean, we have other parts of our brain that are stronger, healthier pieces. Now, thank goodness that these cells were willing to do that, because that alarm, alarm, alert, alert of that left amygdala is what keeps us alive. Because, let's say I was accosted and I did have trauma, and it was by, let's say, a dog, a big German Shepherd. And so now whenever I see a big German Shepherd, I go into alarm, alarm, alert, alert. I've had a problem with a dog like that. That's not safe. I need to push it away. So it is designed to save our life. But again, it is designed to save our life. It is not designed to be a lifestyle.
Right. So when it gets stimulated, when that part of the brain starts telling you like warning, does it then talk to the first character and
Oh, it
say
gets very loud.
it gets very
It
loud?
takes over. It takes over
It
the whole
takes
brain. I
over.
don't know about you, but when I get triggered,
Yes. Yes.
then it's like all the energy in my brain from all four characters goes into my character two,
Got it.
and it get loud because it suddenly moves into, I am not safe and I am going to fight. I'm gonna try to attack. I'm going to make myself
Yeah.
big and ugly and loud, or
Got
I'm
it.
going to play dead, or I'm going to run like the wind and get out of here.
Okay.
So it is, but it's defensive or
Got it.
offensive, but
Got it.
it is, now we all know or we can train ourselves to know the instant that part of ourselves gets triggered. We can know, we can actually train ourselves to watch, because before it hits the mouth to come out or the attack to happen or the fist to go, we feel it in our body, because the way that the body works is from the inside out. We go medial to lateral. Right. So before I go on the attack, I feel myself getting ready to go on the attack. Now, it might happen pretty quickly, which it does, because it's alarm, alarm, alert, alert, designed to save my life. But I can train myself to recognize those warning signs that I'm about ready to explode. But I have to be willing. And if I can differentiate clearly that character inside of myself, then I can really train myself to differentiate and become more refined in my awareness of my own experience.
Mm-hmm. So what's her name or his name? How does it
so
work?
I call mine Abby. Abby is short for abandoned. And I believe that the moment I was born, I lost the symbiosis of a fluid environment where I was one with all that is, and bam, all of a sudden I become a separate. And as soon as I become a separate, the lights and the sounds are no longer muted. I'm being poked and prodded and who knows what. And it's like I wail and I get air into my lungs, and it's an explosion. To me, that's the original trauma. I mean, as beautiful as birth may be, it's still at a physiological. It is a shock to the system.
It's traumatic. It's true.
It's traumatic.
It's totally traumatic.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I call mine Abby, and I love Abby. You know, Abby is can be miserable. I tell Abby, honey, I don't mind if you're miserable as long as the rest of us can enjoy the fact that we're alive and you're capable of being miserable. Right. You know, I mean, grief, deep grief is so beautiful. Sadness can be so beautiful, but again, it is a place to visit, not a lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think mine is, I think I'm going to call her Sadie, because she tends to be sad. The part of me that can be sad. So yeah, I'm going to call her Sadie.
Yeah, and be glad that you're capable of that. I mean, sadness is rich and delicious and beautiful and all encompassing and horrible at the same time. But the deliciousness of the horrible it's the difference between being alive and being capable of suffering versus not being alive and not being capable of suffering.
Yeah.
Suffering is a part of who we are. We learn and we grow and we gain insight from this part of ourselves. We just need to love ourselves. And we have the ability then for other characters to come in and self-soothe Sadie.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So who would that be? Who's next?
Okay, so next is going to be character number 3, the emotion of the present moment. Now, in the right brain, let's go there. Let's say I, the individual, I don't exist anymore. Jill Bolte Taylor, she's gone. But I'm still alive and I'm perceiving, and I don't define the boundaries of where I begin and where I end. So I perceive myself to be a fluid in relationship, in symbiosis with the universe, and it's lovely, and it's playful and it's interested and it's creative, because you know, it wants to it's going to color, but the left brain's going to come in and say, oh, you have to make the tree leaves green because tree leaves are green. And it doesn't care about that. It might want purples or blues or combinations. And it, you know, the left brain comes in and says, well, you have to hold the paintbrush like this and do it like that. And you got to color inside of the lines. And the right brain, it's just there. It's present. It's experiential. Let's go play. What does it feel like to have the clothing on my body? How much humidity is in the air? What does it feel like to dive into water and feel the water, the density of the water around me, the thrill and the joy of bubbles in the bubble bath? I mean, you know, it's the right here, right now, present moment, playful, joyful. You know that
Yeah.
part of yourself, Francis?
I'd like to know that part a little bit more, to be honest. I'm like, oh, I recognize that part. It's to me, it's that part that when you're little, when you're little and you're just kind of like exploring everything. You're just exploring everything,
Exactly.
and everything is new and fascinating and all of that. And yeah,
Exactly. And it is. It's part of the emotional system, and the emotional systems, character 2 and 3, they never mature.
yeah,
They never mature because they're not able to mature. They take form, they're in formation by the time we're born, and they're there. So this is your little playful happy self.
yeah, totally. That's awesome.
I call mine Pigpen. In the Peanuts
Yeah,
cartoon, we got
yeah,
Lucy, who's probably character 1, and
right.
Snoopy is probably character 3. But I love Pigpen. Pigpen is walking around in a dust storm because there's just dust everywhere. And his dust may be from
Ah,
Egypt or Babylon or
that's
all,
right. That's
across
right.
all time. And he's just present, and he's just there, and he's just good.
Yeah, and joyful. So speaking of Peanuts characters, I think I'm going to call mine Snoopy.
There you go.
Snoopy is
Perfect.
just like enjoying life as it is. Awesome.
Exactly. And
Awesome.
then character 4 is going to be the thinking tissue of the right hemisphere.
Okay.
So the emotion of the present moment is the experiential. Now, that experiential can get us into trouble because it doesn't know right and wrong and good and bad, and it doesn't respect authority. So it can break laws, it can break boundaries, it can land us in jail. And my guess is that a lot of our jails are filled with people who at least had some really unfortunate moments as a explosively defensive or offensive, but angry or hurt character 3. So it's not all great, but it is the experience, the emotion of the present moment. And then character 4 is the thinking, and the thinking is truly this incredible deep sense of gratitude, this sense of gratitude and knowing that every cell in my body came from that single zygote cell, and that
Mm.
single zygote cell in conjunction with the biological genius of my DNA multiplied the DNA, repackaged itself, multiplied the DNA, repackaged itself, up to a rate of 250,000 new cells per second. The consciousness that drove that development. And as it drove the development, somehow the genius of that whole system managed to differentiate cell types. And ultimately, I end up as 50 trillion beautiful molecular geniuses, all inside of the consciousness of the cosmos that is
Wow.
inside each of those cells, that is the residing consciousness of that character 4. So I can pray and quiet my left brain in order to access that beautiful cosmic consciousness. Call it God, call it nirvana, call it infinite wisdom, call it whatever you want to call it, authentic self, call it anything. But that is biologically the thinking tissue in that right hemisphere. And it's always there, and it's always available to us.
Wow. It's always there and it's always
Always,
available.
always available.
So beautiful.
Every ability we have is because we have cells that perform that function. So if I create a mantra is going to preoccupy the left hemisphere character 1 so that she's not just thinking about what I got to do this afternoon, or why I'm not happy about these shoes that, whatever. And so it quiets her in a mantra. She gets caught up in a thinking pattern, and she repeats the thinking pattern, and that calms and quells all of her stuff, and into this loop that allows me then to open the consciousness of my right hemisphere so I can quiet the cells of the left hemisphere, which opens me to having the experience of the right hemisphere, which is always on and always there and always available. In an instant, I can choose to bring my mind to the present moment.
Okay.
And in an instant, I can feel gratitude.
Okay, so this is the question I really wanted to ask you because this
We're
is
there. Let's do it.
so you have these four characters, these four aspects. Which
Yes,
one is the choosing one, Dr. Jill? Which one
they all are.
chooses? Do they
They all do.
So when you say, "Oh, I can choose at any moment," is
Yes,
it a part of you, like they say in spirituality, like there's a part of you that's the observer watching you be your personality? Or is it one?
that's
Yeah, tell me. Tell me.
okay. So once you have these four characters and you recognize these four characters, I encourage people to give them names. By the way, my name for character 4 is Queen Toad. Queen, because she has no boundaries. She's as big as the universe. We all
Love that.
are.
I
And
love that.
Toad, because she's a bit goofy. I love the water and I live on a boat, and the boat is my lily pad. So
I
Queen
love
Toad
that.
is my character 4. And I choose to entertain and live as Queen Toad 6 months out of my year. Other I do it a whole year, but it gets cold where I am, so I have to get
Right.
off the boat.
Right.
So identify these characters. Francis, what is give your character 4 a name?
Yeah, I'm gonna use your queen, and I'm gonna call her
Yeah,
Queen. I love Lily. I love that you said that you on this lily pad. I love Queen Lily.
perfect.
I also associate the divine with like the divine mother, but I
Yeah,
love this queen idea, Queen Lily.
yeah, I agree. So now we have all four of these characters. And then what do we do with them?
Yeah.
We listen to them and we create healthy relationships between them. So, say, for example, that you're very busy. You're very busy. Helen is very busy, and character 1 is just busy, busy, busy. And Lucy's just like, I got too much work to do. I
Right.
got things to do. I just don't have time to go play. And so, your little character 3, little Snoopy's going, come on, it's beautiful out. I just a walk around the block. Come on. And if Lucy comes online and says, no, Snoopy, we're too busy, then character 1 is dominating the brain. And it's like, no, my brain is a democracy. They communicate with one another and they're going to
Interesting.
figure out together in communication, in communion, what's our next best move. What Because I know, I have learned that when I'm Snoopy, then I go back to being Lucy. I do a better Lucy because
Yeah.
now I've been refreshed and it's like, oh yeah, I figured out the answer to that question. Or I was feeling anxious about a call that I was going to have to make, and I go be Snoopy or I go be Queen Toad. I'm mixing our
Yeah.
four
Got it.
characters now because
Got it.
that's the way it goes in relationship, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, I go back and I use my Queen Toad character 4 to nurture my Abby, because she is the queen of the universe. She is love. She is
Yeah.
acceptance. She is openness. And it's like, oh, little Abby, we're all here. We got you. Character
Yeah.
1 comes in and says, how do I fix it? Is there a problem? An immediate problem? Do I have to fix it? Are you safe? And character 1 then says, okay, no, everything's okay. Character 4 comes on and says, oh, little Abby, I got you. I love you. Do you need me to listen to you? Do you need to hold you? What do you
Right.
need? And then little Abby starts to feel a little bit better. And then little Pigpen comes in and says, come on, let's go play. Let's go
Right.
do something fun. Let's go make a mess. Let's just go and be ourselves. Let's go play. And then
Yeah.
Abby's going, oh, okay, that was nice. I feel better now.
Yeah.
So I call this a brain huddle, and I call it brain because it's our brain. It's our
Right.
4 characters, but it's BRAIN. And this is the brain huddle. This is my brain team. Every team, they do better when they communicate with one another, right? And they're all equal members of the team. So we have a brain huddle. B, bring your mind to the present moment. Now, any of
I
the
love it.
any of the 4 characters can call a brain huddle at any moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
I call a brain huddle 20 or 30 times a day. It's what I do because I want to practice that circuitry, because again, cells are in circuit. And the more often we run a circuit, the easier, the more on automatic that circuit becomes, and the less reactive I become, because now I can choose who and how I want to be. So I say, okay, I'm going to have a brain huddle. So right now I can have a brain huddle. So I'm being a character one right now. I'm teaching. I've got my earrings in.
Right.
I'm punctual. I'm where I'm supposed to be. So Helen can say, okay, brain huddle. B, breath. Bring your mind to the present moment. That's what breath does. It's the first thing we do with life. It's the last thing we do with life. We have billions and trillions of these things going on constantly all the time. It's like it's the ongoing, and I can jump on the train of breath at any moment to bring myself back to the present moment. So I think about my breath just like we did at the beginning. I breathe in, I center myself. What am I doing? I'm centering myself in the present moment. I'm getting out of my past. I'm getting out of my fear. I'm getting out of my to-do list. I'm
Right.
getting out of, wherever else I am. I'm bringing my mind through my breath to the present moment. B, breath. Brain. R, recognize which character just called the brain huddle. Okay, so right now it was character one, Helen, called my brain huddle. That's great. If I'm out biking and I'm just out tootling along and I just like jump into the water and I'm giggling like a little happy person and I can say brain huddle, then I can say, okay, it was character three who called the huddle. Or I can be out walking in nature. I can be listening. I can be communing with the beautiful little creatures and just admiring the magnificence of life. And it's like, let's have a brain huddle. And that's character four calling a brain huddle. Or I can be just spitting mad and it's like, okay, you other guys, I'm calling a huddle. I need you right now. Right?
Yeah.
Any
Love
of
it.
them
Love
can
it.
call the huddle. So recognize, B, breath. R, recognize
Recognize.
who just called the huddle. B, R, A, appreciate the fact that regardless of who called the huddle, there are four of us. There are four of
Yeah.
us. So we have to pause for that moment and let them all come online. And that's easy when I'm being Helen, unless, I'm just really too busy. And it's like, and it's like, I'm just too busy. And it's like, no, actually right now I need a huddle. So I pause and I come to the present moment and I invite all the other characters in. So I'm appreciating the fact that who called the huddle are recognized. A, appreciate there are four of us.
Yeah.
I inquire, which one do I want to be next? Do I want to go back to being Helen, or do I really want to go, jump in the lake and then I'll feel better, I'll cool down, I'll feel better, or whatever. Or I might have started out, as my character three, Pigpen, and it's like brain huddle. Oh yeah. Oh shoot, time. I got to go dry my hair. I got a podcast to talk on.
Right.
It's like, Helen. So any of them can call the huddle, recognize which one you are, appreciate we're all here, inquire which one should come out next. And then N stands for navigate life moment by moment by moment, because we are. This is what we're doing. And a moment isn't a second or a minute, and then you get another one. A moment is an experience. So it might be the time I'm in a shower might be an experience. Putting my socks on might be an experience. Which character? Well, when I'm in the shower, I'm usually pretty like in my character three. When I'm putting my socks on, I'm a character one, because I have to know that my socks on go before my shoes go on. So I'm constantly each of these four characters bouncing in and out. And the better we can differentiate who's who and what's
Yeah.
going on and why are they doing what they're doing and what is appropriate for my next move, so I can live the life I want to live. This is freedom. This is the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be. I don't
Yes.
know about you, but I want to live like that.
Yes, it's so exciting. I'm so grateful that you're doing this work. It's so important. I mean, I can see how bringing this into your life can help heal some of the really big problems that we have on the planet. Sometimes we can feel overwhelmed, like what can we do about that? But if we're
Right.
handling it here,
Right.
if we're handling those four as because you talk about these four characters, I'm like, there are countries that I see that identify more,
Right.
one way or the other. And it's like, wow, this could really, really help.
Exactly. Exactly. You are exactly right. Because that's how I think. Of course, to me, the brain cells are the microcosm of our behavior
Right.
in the external world, and our behavior is ends up being sociology, the
Yeah.
behavior of us as a species. So what is going on in our world is a direct output of what's going on inside of our brains. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, totally. I love this. All right. Well, we're running out of time. So I just want to give you a moment to say, is there anything else about the book that we didn't cover that you'd like to cover, or anything that you want people to know before we wrap
For
up here?
me, it's just really recognizing that we have much more power over what's going on
Yeah.
inside of our brains than we have ever been taught. And the only reason why this is the first paradigm that actually marries the neuroanatomy of our brain
Yep.
with our behavior and our psychology.
Yeah.
And if you want to have more power over what's going on inside of your brain, this book is written for somebody who doesn't study biology. I mean,
Right.
it is really
Thank
user
goodness.
friendly, and I think it's the closest roadmap or user manual for our brain. And the thing is that there's four in me and there's four in you, which means in every relationship, there's eight of us. And
Right.
just figuring out how to navigate each of those by recognizing, well, which one am I being? You're going to respond it completely differently to me if I come at you as a one, two, three, or four, depending on if you're in your one, two, three, or four.
Right.
So the clarity that this can give relationships, it's a language and it's a whole, I just think it's beautiful material.
It is beautiful material. It's such a gift that you brought it to the world. I'm so, so grateful. So, Dr. Jill, if people want to connect with you more, if they want to find out obviously how to get this book and also anything else that you're going to be offering, is the best place your website? Is that the best place to go?
drjilltaylor.com. That's the best place.
drjilltaylor.com. Okay, so I'm
You
going to
got it.
have that in the show notes for people that they can go there and they can find out what's going on and they can connect with you and tune into
Thank
all this beautiful work that you're doing. I just want to say thank you so, so much for taking the time. I know you're very busy and you're sharing so much light in the world, and it's such a blessing to have you here. Thank you so much.
I feel very blessed, and thank you, Francis. I really appreciate it.
All right, my friends. Well, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you did enjoy it, please tell your friends, leave us a review, let people know, make a comment, and definitely go out and check out Dr. Jill's website. Again, I'll put that in the show notes. And remember that the key to magnifying your miracles, as was scientifically proven today, is to know that your miracle is already here. God bless you, my friends. Bye bye.